A lot of Christian creedal statements have this phrase within there, for our sake he was crucified. So for us is why Jesus came to die. And yet for so many people, I know that really seems a crazy idea. Surely if Jesus is God and he's come to reveal to us what God's love is like, why let them kill him? There must have been a better way. I mean, it's a stumbling block, I think, for many people when it comes to understanding the message of the gospel. And yet it actually, when we get it, becomes the most amazing window into what God is really like. And there are many different metaphors that people have used to try and explain what's going on the cross. But I want to focus on one this week that I found most helpful in really understanding why it is that Jesus had to die. To begin with, to understand what's going on there, we have to look at the larger narrative within the Bible, what it is that God is doing. We have to understand the reality about, if you like, the relationship between God and humanity. And that takes us back to the question we explored in week 1. What is God like? And the writers of the Bible, this consistent theme that runs through it, are pointing out again and again that God is love. And we see that love most completely revealed in the life of Jesus Christ. And the overarching narrative of the Bible is God reaching out to humanity again and again and again, and of humanity turning away and hiding. If Jesus came to reveal that love more fully, then also the story we have within the Gospels is of a humanity that still turns away and rejects him. Jesus reveals the love of God in so many ways, but he himself explained about God's forgiving nature, perhaps maybe most clearly in one of the parables that he told about the prodigal son, one of the most famous parables in the Bible. If you want to look at it in detail, it's in Luke chapter 15. But in that story, he tells the story of a son who asks his father for his inheritance early, basically saying to his dad, Dad, I wish you were dead, I want your money now. Complete insult in the culture of his day. And then he takes his money and he goes off and squanders it on wild living, ends up in hard times, ends up desperate, and thinks maybe my dad might take me back as a servant. So he starts coming home again with his confession prepared and his apology prepared. And his father sees him in the distance before he even comes home, runs to him, welcomes him, embraces him, and reinstates him as a member of the family again. And before the son can get his carefully prepared confession out of his mouth, he is already being embraced and welcomed home. Rather than the parable of the prodigal son, it may be more appropriate to call this the parable of the forgiving father, because the relationship that was broken is restored. And so the overarching narrative for us to look at what's going on the cross is this idea of a father who is longing for his children to come home, who can see that there's things that may be barriers for them in coming back, but he has long ago forgiven. Within this story, the father that Jesus portrayed isn't requiring a confession from his son or restitution from his son coming home. Before his son has even said a word, he's running towards him to embrace him. It's a story of broken relationships that have been restored, of a divide that's crossed, of a son that's welcomed home again. And God longs for that for all of us. He longs to welcome his children home. This is the overarching message within which we need to look at what's going on the cross in more detail. If God is reaching out to us in love always, why go to these great lengths? Why not just show it even more? Why does Jesus have to die, and why particularly does he have to die most gruesomely on a cross? We're going to look at those questions as we go through this week. I hope you can join us.